Seahawks 24, Giants 3. Welcome to Talking Giants, presented by SeatGeek. I'm your host, Bob Biskin, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick. And the Giants are 1-3. And to me, it's not even just being 1-3. It's how you got to 1-3. You know, you lost to the Cowboys and the 49ers, and you look really bad. But those teams have elite talent, right? They have elite pass rushes. They've got aggressive defenses. They got all pros and good offenses. But to lose like this to the Seahawks and have your only win versus the Cardinals, Justin, I don't care who you are, right? If you were like, hey, I think there's going to be some natural regression. You can't win all the one-score games. Maybe there's some things that get figured out with this offense. I just don't think anyone who was being reasonable and not just a troll thought it could be this bad, this pitiful, and this bad to where they have scored a combined 15 points and 3 losses to start the season. Like, this offense has gotten significantly worse with better players. Justin.
Yeah, hey, Bobby Skinner. And there's no excuse. I really don't think there's any excuse for it to be this bad. Like you said, there could have been regression. They could have gotten worse in some areas, and especially when you say Andrew Thomas and Saquon Barkley isn't here. But there's no excuse for it to be this bad. Here's some stats. You know, I'm a stats guy.
No excuse for this game. Like, there's just no excuse for this game.
Right. Hey, I mean, we can even make the argument for, you know, there's no excuse to have an offense that's inoperable even when you play the Dallas Cowboys and the San Francisco 49ers. I can make that argument. We've talked about it even in the past too. The Giants offense has scored more points for their opponents than points scored themselves. That was kind of like a brain thought that I had. And then Bobby and we were talking pre-show, and it's actually a legit stat.
And their losses.
Outside of the Cardinals game, the Giants have given away more points on offense and special teams than scored, 21-15. Not great. The Giants have averaged 5 points per game if you take away the Cardinals game. They still haven't scored a touchdown in the first half. They haven't scored a touchdown at home yet in 8 quarters. They've allowed the most sacks through 2 home games ever, according to ESPN Stats and Info. And the funny thing is that I don't even think the O-line played that god-awful tonight. We'll talk about it. And Daniel Jones had an average depth of target of 3, which is in the first percentile, while we have guys like Jalen Hyatt, Darius Slayton, Darren Waller getting a total of 8 targets on the game and 3 targets in the first half. Oh yeah, they also had 10 days to prepare for this game too, and to try and get better and find some sort of semblance of an offense, find some sort of pulse on offense against the Seahawks defense that has allowed Adam Thielen and Andy Dalton last week to have a pretty damn good game, and they've allowed some explosive plays. So if there was a game where the Giants offense was going to get back on schedule, it was this game, and yet we saw another game where they couldn't score a touchdown, another game where the offense totally looked inoperable, and the frustrating thing is that it really does start with Daniel Jones, and that's not a sentence I want to be saying basically 25% of the way into the season.
Least amount of points scored in the first 2 home games of the season. Before this was the Jags with 5 points, I think, in 2013. Now, I disagree. The offensive line, to me, did play terrible. But it doesn't, it's, to me, I agree with you with this, where they gave up 11 fucking sacks. I don't care when they happen. That's terrible. But this game does start with Daniel Jones, right? And I think this could be the worst game of his career. Now, I went back and looked at it. I think the 2020 Bucks Monday Nighter, just love Monday Night Football, is probably worse. I don't think the Jason Garrett Monday Night Football game versus the Bucks is worse, but I do think that 2020 might be worse. But the thing was there were some wow moments in that game. Yeah, the touchdown to Deion Lewis, the touchdown to Golden Tate at the end. But it had dumb interceptions and missed throws. Here's the thing. We're going to talk about 11 sacks, right? Well, 5 of the 8 happened once Daniel Jones picked 6 and threw the game away, right? And 5 of the 8 in the second half. The 3 in the first half were totally avoidable by Daniel Jones. The third one is arguable, and we'll talk about it. But it's 14-3. You drive down the field, and you throw that pick 6, Justin, and that is just so unacceptable. They're looking to jump. Quick stuff. They have Paris Campbell bracketed on both sides. I don't care which way you thought Paris Campbell was moving. He was covered on both sides. And you just decide pre-snap that's where you're going based off of their alignment. You just pre-snap off of their alignment, decide that's where you're going. Witherspoon jumps it. And instead of the game being 14-11 or 14-10, It's now 21-3, and the game is over. Again, you have a fumble in the first half. They score. They get the ball down to the 7-yard line. Score 2 plays later, and 2 of their 3 touchdowns come off of Daniel Jones turnovers. Obviously, the pick six much worse than the strip sack. The offensive line in the first half was not good, but when they were able to keep some type of pass rush balance, it was not totally keeping them from moving the ball. It had issues, but it was not totally holding them back. And again, DJ created sacks, right? One where he ran out of bounds. That's okay. A 1-yard loss, so not a big a deal. But again, the free rusher play, like, you have to see that. You have to see that and throw hot, and he just sits there and takes the sack on in and ends the drive. And then the play action one we'll talk about. But again, like DJ, there was no aggression. Lowest average depth of target in the NFL this season at 3 yards. Was throwing an average of 7 yards short of the first down marker. And then on throws of over 10 yards, he was 1 for 2 for 22 yards and an interception. Now, again, the offensive line was absolutely dog shit. And I do want to talk about that because it does suck. But outside of that, Daniel Jones had a horrible game. And he was, to me, like, if you want to say the offensive line is number 1, go for it. But DJ was number 2 on why the Giants lost this game, right? And JMS gets injured. You have Azudu, Lemieux, Bredesen, McKeithen, and Neal. But whatever you want to argue, DJ was one of the top 2 reasons the Giants lost this game. And that sucks. That really sucks.
Yeah. And Daniel Jones this season overall has not been an advantage outside of 2 quarters against Arizona. And that's a sentence that sucks to say as well. Even, like, again, and this is why it's so complicated and nuanced, because I'm sitting here and I say that sentence of, I don't feel like Daniel Jones has been an advantage. Well, how can you be an advantage when you have that offensive line? So I get it. Like, all these things are true. All these things are true at the same time. But I'm sitting there at that game at MetLife, and yeah, the offensive line is bad, and it was bad. But I'm sitting there at the game at MetLife just feeling like there is time to operate an offense tonight. And for whatever reason, Seahawks secondary doing a good job, locking guys down. They play zone, and they were actively trying to prevent the explosive play, even though teams in the past have had really good success finding big plays against this Seahawks defense. That was the frustrating thing today, is that Isaiah Hodgins led the team in receiver air yards versus Seattle today at 5.9. Then Darius Slayton was 5.5. Hyatt was at 5. And Darren Waller, a guy that we want to be a balanced receiver, a balanced target, at 3.8. And like, what happened? What happened to the Darren Waller that we saw every single day at training camp?
The entire offense.
Where he was the entire offense. What happened to that? Like, what is different? And I'm not even saying, is it him? Is it Joe? I'm just asking the question, what happened from the guy that was supposed to be the offense this year? More than Saquon Barkley. And this was supposed to be the game where Witherspoon was coming back for the Seahawks, Tyreek Woolen really coming back, and those guys were, getting more healthy. So it's like, all right, well, the receivers may have a hard time getting open, but this is the Darren Waller game. Let's get him more involved. Nothing. Three targets.
Well, and we talk about blame and stuff. Like the Dallas game for DJ, there was plays to be left on the field. But again, you talk about how overwhelming the rush was. The 49ers game, there was a couple plays where you think, but even then, if he hits those plays, I don't think it changes the dynamic of the game. This is a game where if they just have a slightly below average offensive performance out of DJ, they might win this game.
There were 2 drives. There were 2 drives of 40-plus yards for the Seahawks. I know we're not talking about the defense yet, but 2 drives of 40-plus yards for the Seahawks. That's it.
If you do what every other team, the Panthers, the Lions, or the Rams do versus the Seahawks, you win this game, and you win it pretty comfortably too. And again, that pick 6 to me is just so brutal. Now let's talk about the offensive line, right? Again, the 3 sacks in the first half to me were avoidable. Now the third one, let's talk about the play action where DJ makes the first guy miss. This is something where I got to watch the All-22 shout out coach to really talk about scheme and stuff. This is the thing. We talked about it coming into this game, Justin, right? Where I'm saying teams are going to get aggressive off the play action. You cannot leave cats unblocked or they're going to get it. And on the first drive of the game, DJ made a guy miss. They left him unblocked on the backside of play action. And I tweeted out again, like, you can't assume that they're going to play the run. And then on that one, DJ makes the first guy miss and then gets chased from behind by Mario Edwards and strip sack. Now, Wandale was open in the flats or you could have thrown it away. That one I'm willing to debate, but at the same time, like, I want DJ to hold on to the ball there anyways. But that one I think is debatable. We'll see when you have all 22 exactly what happened. I thought ESPN did a horrible job with their replays, by the way. You have that one game, do a better job.
So is it that simple, Bobby? Because I'm sitting there in the stadium, I'm being like, we have to, if we're going to run play action as much as we're going to run it, because play action gets Daniel Jones away from the pocket, you at least have to consider it for at least like a half a second that there's a possibility of a run coming, at least for the interior defenders and maybe, I guess maybe even not the edge rushers. So is it as simple as that? As why in the world are we allowing these backside defenders to come running free on play action attempts? Is it as simple as edge defenders are not respecting play action with the Giants anymore?
Yep.
Is it as simple as that?
Yep. Which is a change, obviously, from what they had last year. Obviously, Saquon being out,
not being there,
I think affects that too. But the Giants were able to have like some type of pass rush balance, and like if you go back and watch the offensive line the first half, it's certainly not good, but it was not hampering them from having any type of offense.
Right.
And it was missed, like DJ missed one. I think you said DJ missed Wandale on a third down where he was deep down the field. And
that's a frustrating thing about DJ. There were so many times this game where nobody's open fine, or he gets pressure and he's scrambling and he's running. This is an area where I was expecting Daniel Jones to take a jump in, because you have Darren Waller, because you have Jalen Hyatt, because Darius Slayton. This is year 5 of them together, right? I was expecting DJ to make this jump, especially with the added skill position players. You see a lot of big plays happen in the NFL that are totally unscripted. QB runs when a quarterback drops back to pass and then he scrambles. When a quarterback is rolling to his left, when a quarterback is rolling to his right, and improvising. A lot of the big plays in the NFL that you see, they're like totally unscripted. But I know for a fact, like the best teams, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, they all practice when their quarterbacks are improvising and they're rolling to their right and they're trying to extend plays. They practice on where to go, where to be, how to get open, where to sit, where to find that hole to make it easier for the quarterback to make a throw. And that's part of this game where even if the scripted stuff wasn't working, I thought, man, like, DJ, make a fucking throw outside the pocket, man. And at least on one play, you mentioned it with Wandale, I think it was on the third down. It was definitely in the first half. The Giants were on their own side of the field because they barely crossed midfield anyway this game. I want to see Daniel Jones make more plays off structure. If the O-line is going to be this bad and you don't feel like you have the confidence to make plays from within the pocket, if you're rolling out to your right and you're not tucking and running right away, we got to be able to create big plays somehow, and making them off-structured with the new added weapons that we had this year should not be out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, and again, I do want to watch all 22 to see exactly what happened on a lot of stuff. But here's what I come back to is the pick six lost you the game. It totally lost you the game. And if we get basically any Daniel Jones performance from last season, like you copy and paste any performance from last season, the Giants probably win this game.
So let me ask you this.
Because you're not having that pick six and you're at least getting 1 or 2 drives of scores on you.
You'll have a better idea when you watch the film, blah, 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 blah. And we'll talk about this in the mailbag. Maybe this is a good mailbag question, but I'm sitting in the car driving on my way home. Way too much traffic for me leaving at the beginning of the fourth quarter. That just lets you know where the Giants are at as a fan base. I left at the beginning of the fourth quarter thinking I'll actually get a jump on getting home, but it's like, no, the rest of the stadium also left at the beginning of the fourth quarter too. So it was like I was sitting in regular traffic, even though I was listening to the last 4 minutes of the game. Daniel Jones looked really comfortable in this offense last year. He had a mastery of the offense last year. You could say that it went away towards a little bit of the second half of the year, but I don't fully buy it because you had 2 Vikings games where he had mastery of the offense. Bad defense, I know, but the Seahawks pass defense is a bad pass defense too. Didn't take advantage of it. You had the Colts game, which was there. You operated a really nice drive against Washington in that win on Sunday Night Football, primetime game. Daniel Jones had mastery of this offense last year. You upgrade skill position players this offseason. What happened, man? Do you think that the coaching staff is now asking him to do more with the upgraded weapons, and they're asking him to throw it deep down the field? And now, because of our worries with Daniel Jones of not being able to throw the whole shot and maybe processing post-snap, like some of the worries that we had about Daniel Jones, they're now coming up to the surface because the coaching staff is asking him to do more? Like, what happened from the mastery that we had with this offense last year that he had to now the Giants are a bottom 3, maybe bottom 2 offense in the NFL?
Well, 2 things. In the first 2 games on all 22, we did see some stuff that like was put on his plate more and he didn't do. Our first 3 games, including the Cardinals game in the first half. So again, I hate to say it, but you got to watch all 22 to get a better idea of what was happening down the field. And fuck ESPN, dude. They don't replay shit, and they give bad replays too, like tight angles. Like, let us see what's happening down the field for the love of God. But also teams are just jumping on like the quick game and stuff. And you don't have Saquon Barkley. You don't have like the running game that you had last year. Right. And this is where it's like when people like to argue that running backs don't matter at all. Like, yes, they fucking do. And then once it gets out of hand, because of Daniel Jones, it gets out of hand, then defenses can just pin their ears back. Right. And that's where you get 5 sacks, and you get 5 sacks after DJ throws that pick 6. And then, I mean, you have 4 guards starting on the offensive line. You have Josh Azudu at left tackle, guard. Shane Lemieux, left guard. Ben Bredesen at center, guard. Marcus
and
McKeith,
the banished, that's what I love. That's his new nickname now. The banished Mark Lewinsky. Didn't he find his way back into the starting lineup because Lemieux got hurt?
I don't know if Lemieux got hurt or Lemieux just got benched because he was really bad. And then Neal was really bad too. So then once you get to a point where it's like, okay, you got to throw the ball. Well, then the Seahawks just pin their ears back, right? Where if you kept this game close, I'm telling you, if you don't have that pick 6, like the Giants may have won this game, like legitimately may have won this game if if he doesn't throw the pick 6. Where I'd say, if you get basically any performance from 2022, DJ, you probably win this game.
Yeah.
So again, the 11 sack number, it's ugly. It's really bad, and it is a testament to how bad this offensive line is. But Daniel Jones made it worse, right? Where you can pin your ears back on this shitty offensive line. There was a guaranteed 2 sacks in the first half that were totally Daniel Jones' fault and not the offensive line's fault. And then the first 2 after the half were obviously on the offensive line. So it was a bad mix-up. It was a bad meshing of horrible quarterback play and horrible offensive line play for the Giants. And you just can't win like that. Yeah, I mean, that's simple. You can't win with horrible quarterback and horrible offensive line play. Yeah. And that's what the Giants got on Monday night.
Yeah. And when Matt Breida is leading the team in targets and receptions, I think he was tied maybe with Wan'Dale in like the lead, leading in receptions and targets, whatever. Wan'Dale looked pretty good. But when Matt Breida is like your leading receiver, I'm sorry, on a team with Jalen Hyatt, Darius Slayton, and Darren Waller, and I'm bringing this up continually because it's like, well, what's the reason here? Is it coaching? Is it design? Is it them not getting open? Or is it Daniel Jones not finding them? And I guarantee you there are times where it could be a bit of the 3, but really freaking frustrating, man, where you spent all summer, you spent all offseason getting excited about the 3 of those guys and how 3 of those guys can totally change the offense from an explosive standpoint. And it's just, they're the players that you want to rely on to be good for you, even in an offense without Saquon Barkley. just not there. And going up against a pass defense where I wasn't enthused about this game. I mean, go back to the preview pod. I literally start off the preview pod saying, I don't have a good feeling about this team. And I didn't think I'd be this right. I didn't think it was going to be this bad, but I still was going into the Seahawks game, Bobby, being like, we could lose the game. And I honestly thought it'd be a little bit more on the defense before the game. Like, I'm really shocked at how well they played. We could lose the game, but I thought we were actually going to rip off some explosive plays. Like, why not? Like, that the edge rushers weren't that great. It was the interior guys that were really creating the pressure for Seattle, and even then, it even wasn't that fantastic. The fact that, I think, what did they have? One pass play at 20-plus yards? And it was to Matt Breida. It was that Matt Breida, rollout where Jones was rolling to his left, kind of throws it on the run to Breida on the sideline. Was that the only play at 20-plus yards? Can't have it, man. Just can't have it. It's a shame.
Yeah, pretty brutal. Why don't you talk to us about the friends who hosted our tailgate? And I actually want to talk about special teams before we get the defense.
Yeah.
Before we get into that, actually talk about Candlewick, and then I want to talk about Brian Daboll Daniel Jones for a second. Man,
I'll tell you what. Candlewick Diner really delivered the heat today. And what was funny? I was talking with Pest the analyst. He always comes by the tailgates. He says hello, give him a big hug. I asked Pest the analyst, Pest, you want some food? Food from Candlewick? He's like, no. I actually went to the Candlewick Diner this afternoon. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's fine. If you don't want to double up, I totally get that. So Pest the analyst, already going to the Candlewick Diner in the afternoon, and then plus a bunch of people from our Talking Giants tailgate got to enjoy the best diner in the state of New Jersey, bringing the heat with some mac and cheese. The sausage and onions and peppers are a hit every single year. The penne vodka, simple food, simple tailgate food, but it's so effective. It's so awesome. People were eating it up. They're celebrating their 54th year in East Rutherford this October 26th, and it's the third year partnering with Talking Giants for our tailgates. They are the original food caterer and supporter for the podcast. Manny takes a lot of pride in that. Manny is the owner of the Candlewick Diner. If you go to the Candlewick Diner, make sure you say, hey, Manny, appreciate you. Talking Giants sent me. He'd love to hear it. He takes a lot of pride in this being our third year partnering, and I take a lot of pride that Manny has supported us even from day one. They're located a mile up the road from MetLife Stadium, so they're a perfect spot to grab a pregame meal or a postgame bite. Check out the Candlewick Diner in East Rutherford, New Jersey for all of your diner favorites at candlewickdiner.com. You'll be glad you did, Bobby Skinner. Can I get sappy now about thanking people coming to the tailgate, or should I do that later?
Whichever you prefer, because I
want to do it now, because I hate bitching and moaning and complaining for a whole show, and when really that may not fully match my mood. I am upset and I'm pissed off at this Giants team, but man, I even was in the car home and I'm like, I'm mad about the results of the team, but what makes this time of my Giants fandom life different from previous years where I would just go to a game and I would go home and I'd just be flat out pissed. And now I get to go home and have a absolutely fantastic time at a tailgate where I meet people like Mr. Roddy Piper, who we've been talking for years, Red Yeti 9, or some of our overseas listeners who we talk with for years. They support us for years, and we chat with them. We root for the Giants for years. Finally get to meet them in person, and it's like, holy shit, you're people, and we're like friends, and we're just catching up. There was a couple that came from Alabama who they're like, all right, we have to come to the Giants game. We're from Alabama. This is our one chance to do it. And it's plus we have to come to a Talking Giants tailgate. We have people from overseas, England, Scotland, every single game. Well, I flew here and I had to also come here. So that's awesome. That's so freaking cool. Our community amazes me every single game. And I'm even thinking Monday night, there may not be a ton of people that shows up. People are working, blah, blah, blah. Once it got really to 5:30, 6 o'clock, tailgate was bumping, tailgate was cooking, and it was just fantastic. So, even in the worst of days, it's the community that surrounds us that really does remind me how awesome the things that we're doing, and we're all doing it together. So thank you so much. I love meeting everybody, especially those that, hey, maybe I don't get the chance to see all that often. So the fact that you make it to MetLife Stadium and you feel like I need to come to L16, absolutely awesome.
Thank you to Manny and Candlewick for making
Yes.
making it a lot easier and
Making
better.
it happen.
Did you see the clips of Daboll getting on Daniel Jones? I mean, Daboll was like, to me, I was like worse than the Titans scream. At least the scream is angry. That was like just disgust with him. Like, you just lost this game type of disgust.
Yeah.
And that's where it's like, well, we can't put. Well, guess what, Brian Daboll. And then again, we'll see how much of this is on coaching and stuff when we look at film. But besides some stuff you can see on TV or whatever,
You can't throw that interception. You can't throw that interception.
Nope. Like that's really, really fucking bad.
Waller was open in the post.
I don't care if no one was open. You don't throw that ball.
No, you can't. That cost you the game. I saw Daboll throwing the iPad. What I really thought was interesting, you can't see Daniel Jones's body language, but it seems like Daboll, I don't want to create a storyline, but this is just my first, I watched this a lot because I really wanted to see, is this happening? Daniel Jones, I think Daboll's trying to show Daniel Jones something, and Daniel Jones kind of just buried his own head in his own Microsoft Surface tablet thing, and then that's when Daboll just fucking yeets the tablet. Daboll's a coach that runs hot. I don't think it's like,
I like that, to be honest.
I like it, but I don't think it's like a what's the word I'm looking for? Like a judgment on Daniel Jones's future or anything like that. But yeah, I mean,
anyone who's mad at Daboll
showed that it's like there's no player that's excused from a coach being pissed off when a coach is pissed off just because you're the quarterback and you're paid a lot of money, yada yada yada.
Yeah,
you're not excused from it.
Anyone mad at Daboll for that is just clutching their Daniel Jones pearls.
Who is mad at Daboll for that?
Some people being like, Daboll should be discussed with himself or the offensive line, blah, blah, blah.
The quarterback made a mistake.
Giants special teams. I already got this tweet drafted for the morning, so you probably already saw when you're listening to this. And this is where it's like there's overreaction, like fire Kafka, fire Wing, fire, Here's where there's not overreaction. When you say fire the special teams coordinator who has been here since Pat Shurmur. The guy came in with Pat Shurmur. Eric Gray muffs a punt. Darnay Holmes lets a punt bounce into the end zone for a touchback. Adoree Jackson goes in the game. That's on Daboll. Why is Adoree Jackson fucking... That's something you criticize Daboll for. Stop with the Adoree Jackson shit.
Also, there was a punt that he should have caught.
I got it. Penalty on a kick return that already only went to the 20-yard line. A penalty on a punt. Adoree lets a punt that was at the 18 roll to the 2-yard line because he's afraid to catch it. Then you allow a 23-yard punt return plus a 10-yard penalty, and then another penalty on a punt. I mean, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 penalties, 2 bad jobs on punt return, or punt and punt return, and you have a guy who muffs a punt and a bad kick return. Like, that's, again, after what happened week 1, where the Cowboys, Fossil, what's John Fossil's son's name? Or Jim Fossil's his son is John Fossil.
Yeah.
Really screwed that one up. Who's the special teams coordinator, was telling his players, we're going to block a kick. We're going to block a kick based off of what this happens. You saw it in the preseason. There's just at what point does Thomas McGahee, who, and again, another way I want to criticize Daboll and had this I remember in Alabama being like, why didn't Daboll go out and get his own special teams coordinator? And then you hear about the hiring process of McGahee, as McGahee's like kind of pitching it, and Daboll's just like, oh, you want the job, right? And give him the freaking job. McGahee should be fired.
Yeah.
Our special teams are constantly a negative. And again, I'm not going to sit here and analyze every single one of those plays, but again, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 8 negatives in one freaking game on special teams.
Special teams has played somewhat of a factor on putting the offense behind schedule, which, that offense probably isn't doing anything anyway, and allowing points.
It was bad last year, too.
They've played a huge part in it. And I'm watching Eric...
Special teams haven't been good since 2019.
I'm watching Eric Gray every single day in training camp, and even saw a little bit in the preseason, too. He falls down, catching every single punt. I'm starting to regret Eric Gray even being on the 53. What team would have picked him up? I think even the Grump tweeted that out. What team really would have picked up Eric Gray? Get it, he's a 5th round pick, he's a draft pick, blah, 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 blah.
I think someone would have picked him up.
Running a little hot right now. But, like, they practice special teams at least 30 minutes every single practice. 30 minutes.
Do they, though? Like, we've seen it for 2 years. They don't actually practice. We went to Detroit.
Damn it, they're supposed to. Damn it, they're supposed to.
We went to Detroit and watched them practice special teams, and it is intense. With the Giants, it is always a walkthrough period. It's always a walkthrough period.
You have 10 guys every single day that are practicing catching kickoffs and practicing catching punts, yet none of them seem like they can do it. I don't know. I left. So I'll tell you when I left. I left the game, and it was the pre-snap procedural penalty on a Giants punt, which gave the Seahawks more yards. Because I left when the Giants ended one of their offensive possessions. I think it was maybe at the start of the 4th quarter, end of the 3rd quarter. And I just fucking lost it. I lost it. Thomas McGahee, fucking fire. I lost my shit. Man, it's like, I feel like I'm living deja vu, where I've never cared all that much about special teams. We never care about special teams on this podcast. But I feel like I'm living deja vu, where even me being fucking 14 years old, where everything here was about irrationality and emotion, I even knew that Tom Quinn was a terrible special teams coordinator. He lasted through Coughlin. He was even bad under Coughlin. And he lasted all through Coughlin, lasted all through Shermer, and I think he was still an assistant under Judge. Like, he was the assistant special teams coordinator. The dynamic duo of Tom Quinn and Thomas McGahee. And then he finally got out. So it's like, I feel like I'm living deja vu all over again with Thomas McGahee. And both of them are bad at that. Believe it or not, I think Tom Quinn was worse at his job.
Well, the special teams were good in 2019. So, like, okay, Judge brings them back. Cool. But then to survive all this and last year, I don't get it. Let's talk about the defense.
I don't need special teams to be good. I just need them to not be a fucking negative on the game. I don't need them to be good.
And they consistently are negative.
Talk about the defense.
Defensively, this was a good game for the defense. But I'm going to be honest. Maybe this is me being a little mad. I still wanted more. The Seahawks offensive line was just as banged up as the Giants. Like, the only advantage they had is they actually had a tackle playing left tackle. And Stone Forsythe. Did a film breakdown on him in that draft class. So the pass rush was pretty solid. Like, Kayvon, now one of them was garbage time, but Kayvon had 2 sacks, 2 QB hits. Aziz got the corner a couple times. Leo and Deck got pressure. But part of me is like, after watching the Giants offensive line get overwhelmed in 3 games, like playing that Seahawks offensive line, I'm kind of pointing like, well, why don't we who have all this money and investment up front just dominate them up front? But in a game where the offense lost the game, they did play well. Again, they only gave up 281 yards, 5.5 yards per play, and 14 of the points. One was a pick six, and the other one was a 7-yard drive off of a fumble. Now, the one touchdown that they did give up on their own was very frustrating with Drew Lock in the game, which I think Drew Lock actually would have been better for them because Drew Lock was mobile, and I think a mobile Drew Lock was probably a little better than banged up Geno at that point. And Lock was just getting outside the pocket, and Giants coverage was breaking down. But the Giants were able to get up into Geno like pretty well. Basically, most of the guys on defense showed up outside of Deontay Banks, and then Bobby Okereke, dude, like has just these weird like hesitation plays, like that big play that Noah Fant. He's running like, just go make the fucking tackle on the sideline, and he just like
run him over, man.
He just breaks down and he runs past him. I don't understand it with Okereke, where there's so many like. Again, Okereke had 2 tackles for loss. Like, the run defense was very good.
There are times he looks really good, and then there are times where
he just randomly gets hesitant and allows for big plays.
Kenneth Walker. Now I will say I'm curious if you take out that 31-yard run, I think it was in the fourth quarter. Like I was already gone at that point.
I have the splits. Pre-pick six.
Yeah, go ahead.
Pre-pick six, Walker is averaging 3.4 yards per carry. It felt like less than that, to be honest. But again, Walker is the kind of guy who has like one or two runs that helps get the balance up. And then post pick six, it was 7.6 yards per carry. I mean, they did a pretty damn good job on Walker for the most part. There was a lot of negative plays, and honestly, that got them into some pass rush situations by constantly shutting down the run. Even though if you go look at the box score, it doesn't look like a great rushing game.
But there was like one. But again, I want to get back to Okereke. There was one Okereke play where it's a Kenneth Walker 5-yard run. Bobby Okereke makes a tackle, but Bobby Okereke just like waits for him to like come to him. It's like, dude, go get him. You're untouched. Like that 5-yard play could be a 2 or 3-yard play, and a 2nd and 7 and a 2nd and 5 is like the difference between a successful first down play and an unsuccessful first down play. So, but overall, I thought the Okereke good plays outweighed the bad plays. So that's good.
The Fant one was really fucking bad, but that's
a shitty thing about this defense is because this defense, like I said, 2 drives where they allowed 40 yards. And I think the offense just continually put them in bad situations. Offense had terrible starting field position. While I feel like the Seahawks relatively had good starting field position throughout the game. 2 drives. I'm gonna say it over and over again. 2 drives where they had 40 yards. But it's that one freaking play. It's that one play. So frustrating that you can't get Noah Fant out of bounds and he's just running up that right sideline. But I thought the defense did play well. I thought Kayvon and Azeez that first drive of the game, like seeing Kayvon finish and get the sack, and even Azeez was bending the edge well. That was really cool to see. You want to talk about Kayvon a little bit? Recorded 2 sacks this game.
Yeah, he had 2 QB hits, 2 tackles for loss. So I'm excited to watch him. He's probably the only player I'm just excited to watch on film because, hey, like he was being challenged by us, and basically everyone but Carl Banks was challenging him to be better. And because he needed to be, it was really bad. And I stepped up to the plate in this game. Again, I like to watch the film and see how it was from start to finish. And it's bad tackle play, so you don't take victory laps. But man, the heat could have gotten way hotter. And it's at least bought him some time where it's like, hey, you put together a good performance. And that's something with like, hey, I don't care if it's bad tackle play. Take advantage of the bad tackle play. And Kayvon Thibodeaux certainly did that. So happy for him at least. As again, like with Evan Neal, we talked about it on the preview pod where I was like, the conversation to me is different. Where Evan Neal's like, he's never shown any ability that he's going to be good in the NFL, where Kayvon did. So it's like wake the hell up. With Evan Neal, it's just like, please get better somehow. With Kayvon, it's like a wake up, and I thought he did that in this game. Banks.
I was going to move to Banks next. So I'll give you a stat. Giants rookie Deontay Banks, and this is from Next Gen. Giants rookie Deontay Banks shadowed DK Metcalf on 100% of his 25 routes, allowing 3 receptions on 4 targets, 34 yards, and a touchdown as the nearest defender. So that stat line looks pretty good. Only 8 yards after the catch, by the way, when DK is known as a yak guy. The touchdown was rough. I saw that happen like in live time. It was a really smooth play by DK Metcalf where he's like locked up with Deontay Banks. Geno Smith throws that ball. He is still locked up with Deontay Banks. Banks probably doesn't even know the ball's coming. DK, fast twitch muscle fibers, boom, breaks away. Touchdown Giants. Geno's able to throw that towards like the outside shoulder and towards the sideline. So I think DK just sent Deontay Banks to school on that play. But if Deontay Banks was the guy to shadow DK Metcalf on 100% of his 25 routes, I still do consider that a success for Deontay Banks.
Yeah, he's been consistently kind of losing at the catch space through essentially every game after Dallas. And
who's winning at the catch space on this team?
I mean, Adore. Now, Adore hasn't been great, but Banks is losing at the catch space, and that's something where I don't know if it's a confidence thing or what, but I'd much rather it be that than what we saw at the beginning of camp where he's getting cooked off the release and burnt, right? But I do want to see him play with a little more confidence. Now, again, this week is versus DK Metcalf. Last week he was against Ronnie Bell. Like, it's obviously 2 totally different guys, and when DK was the guy we were worried about going into this game. And Geno went to him versus the blitzes and man coverage. But they were able to pressure Geno, and then once Geno got injured, Geno wasn't able to do very much. And again, the run defense was good. So, and that's where it's frustrating, Justin, is where we said, like, if DJ just has any performance he had last year in this game, the Giants win this game. And you're 2-2, and there's things to clean up and stuff, but you move forward 2-2, right? And instead, you move forward at 1-3, facing the Dolphins, then the Bills, and this could get bad. This can get ugly quick, man. Like,
Yeah.
Games that looked winnable a week or two ago may not, or the easy part of the schedule will quickly you become the easy part of the schedule for other teams. And that's not a good place to be. So we'll see how things go, but it's impossible to feel good about this team right now. So we'll talk about some big picture stuff on the mailbag pod. Do you have anything else from the game?
No, I mean, I do feel much better about this defense than, compared to heading into this game. They showed some good stuff versus the 49ers, but the 3rd and longs were really tough against the 49ers. Now, the positive thing is that we knew. The one thing that we knew about the Seahawks heading into this game, and then the one thing that worked, it's like we talked about on offense. Well, we knew that they were a bad explosive play defense. Well, the Giants didn't take advantage of that. The one thing that the Giants did take advantage of is the fact that the Seahawks were so bad on 3rd down. We talked about that on the preview pod, and the Seahawks were 3 for 12 on 3rd down. And they got them into a lot of 3rd and long situations. And then that's where Wink Martindale was able to get in his bag. And I thought outside of that one Noah Fant play that's really tough and it's really inexcusable by a lot of guys on that defense, but I thought the tackling was actually good. Geno Smith's average depth of target was like 3 yards. And that means that if Geno Smith is completing passes 3 yards down the field, you do need guys to come up and make tackles. And I thought guys were coming up and making tackles. So I feel much better about this defense. I thought, if you were to tell me Giants lose this game, it's because they allow over 30 points, and it's this defense that's had trouble tackling and getting off the field on 3rd downs, and Kayvon Thibodeaux hasn't showed up yet. Okay, well, that's the reason why we lost this game, is because the defense just didn't show up, and they freaking showed up, man. Well, one legit touchdown allowed in this game? One legit touchdown. You're muted.
Yeah, basically. I mean, DJ had the lowest average depth of target this week and in the entire season. Geno had the second lowest, 3.6. Yeah. All right, so before we get out of here, we texted about it briefly. We were supposed to have a watch party for Sunday Night Football versus the Bills. We can't do that now, right? People aren't going to show up.
No, people are not going to show up.
So we'll text Bill in the morning and be like, hey, I don't think we can do this.
I just don't think it's smart to do it. I understand from...
I don't think people are going to show up.
I understand from a venue standpoint. It's like, yeah, we want to... There's this venue that, we've been talking to for a while that wants to get more involved with watch parties and getting a football crowd at their place. But I just don't think it's a smart thing to do. And I would feel... think about it as myself. I don't know if I would want to pay money to go and watch a bad football team, and odds are it's going to be a bad game. So
on Sunday Night Football,
we'll try, and Sunday Night Football night game. It's a school night, work night, whatever. So
if we don't do it, I do have a hotel and flight booked.
No, you do not.
Yeah, I do.
To go to Buffalo. Oh, no, that's right. Well, no, you're coming up here regardless.
So
I thought you were saying you had a hotel and flight booked to Buffalo.
We can do one of two things. We can just do like a live stream from the office. Actually, one of 3 things. I could just not go, which, to be honest, as a human being, I think that's the thing I'd want to do, but I don't want to waste company money and might as well take advantage. Or we could drive to Buffalo and stay in Danny King's dorm and go to the Bills game. And
there is no way
this season's over.
We are staying in Danny King's dorm.
It'd be a good experience. You always shoot me down on these things, and then people end up loving them.
You're 6'7". I'm a 6-foot human being. I am 25 years old. I am no longer of college age. I don't feel like I'm a peer of them anymore.
Well, you're not, but we're gonna go stay in Danny King's dorm and go to the game and just enjoy Sunday night football game in Buffalo.
Senior. He's a senior, right?
Yeah.
He should be living in an apartment by now.
But he's not. I don't think he is.
He's in a dorm. His room does look like a dorm.
I think he's in a dorm.
He's a senior. What are you doing in a dorm, Danny King?
And maybe he's not, but I think we're gonna have to stay in Danny King's dorm and go to the Bills game.
I'd rather sleep in the van.
It's gonna be cold.
I like the cold. Maybe not Buffalo.
How
cold.
long of a drive is that?
It's longer than you think. It's longer than you think because Buffalo is like legit close to Canada. So I'm just gonna put Buffalo in my phone right now. Buffalo, New York. It is it's a 6-hour drive. I thought it was longer. I can't believe we drove to Detroit. That was a crazy thing.
Can I say something? How did the offense look so good in training camp? How did the year before it look like it? And again, this is where it's like, I don't care how much of a pessimist you were, as long as you weren't a troll, no one could have envisioned this. How is it so bad? I don't understand it, right?
Darren Waller was the offense and was targeted every single day he was out there, and then the days that he wasn't targeted, it was the maintenance days.
You had the preseason drive, right? I don't care if it's just fucking preseason. Like, that shit looked efficient as fuck. And like, we've seen DJ, this is the 5th year of DJ, right? And we're doing like, I cannot believe we're having like, is this DJ's worst game conversation with this personnel around him? It's very bad. All right, that's an episode. We will be back for a mailbag. It'll be out on Thursday.
We didn't come to a consensus.
Well, we'll see what the listeners say. How about that?
Let's see what the listeners say. Do not pressure us to stay in Danny King's dorm.
Well, just do what you think is best. What makes for best content, bro. It's all about the content. Slaves to the content, bro. We got to figure out a way to keep this season somewhat interesting. I mean, we're at our best when the Giants are bad. That's a fact. That's when we get our most creative. And I always say, don't think about the moment, think about the memory. I always say that. That is one of my lines that I just made up, and it's honestly a banger too.
You know what? That's you just made that up? You didn't steal that from anybody?
No, I didn't. I actually did just make that up.
What's the line?
It's not about the moment, it's about the memory.
I think you gotta put that.
It's kind of good.
I think you gotta like put that on like a mug and like sit like that's like you.
Someone tweet that quote at the show. First one that does it, I'll retweet it.
That's like you sitting on a beach sipping on your morning coffee, and then that saying is on your mug.
Actually, I'm going to schedule a tweet from Talking Giants right now.
It's not about the moment. It's about the memory.
Well, I got to get one. I want people to listen to the pod, right? And Danny King is like, he's a little out of the loop sometimes.
Yeah, Danny King won't be awake until 11:45 a.m.
It's not about the moment. I have to fly this week and go to a wedding. So we got to do the mailbag at like 9 a.m. on Wednesday.
Are we going to do it live?
No, because that'd be too early.
Oh.
It's not about a moment. About the moment. It's about the memory. Bobby Skinner on today's podcast trying to convince Justin to go to Buffalo and stay
on Danny King's floor.
We'll buy air mattresses. We're not sleeping on the floor. Staying in Danny King's dorm. Shit. This is what I'm actually using the undo button. Fuck yes. I accidentally pressed tweet. I wanted to schedule that.
Good for you.
I've used that undo button like 4 times. All right, October 3rd.
How much money do you get paid on Twitter this month?
Like $300.
Whoa.
I actually get a decent little check from it. So if like someone does like you pay for Twitter thing, part of me wants to respond. Like, actually, I'm getting paid. But then it's like, it's not that serious, Bob. So just let them get off their joke and But I actually haven't gotten that yet because I don't say that stupid as shit. All right, that's an episode. We'll be back Thursday. We'll have a mailbag pod out, and then we'll be previewing the freaking Miami Dolphins. I'll be in a hotel wedding weekend. We'll see you then. Until then, let's go Big Blue.